Coming to paperback and e-readers, Isis Dark Incubus. The goddess next door gets enthralled in a romantic entanglement with an evil incubus in this all-new Isis series adventure. Pre-order your copy of Isis Dark Incubus at Amazon.com and other online booksellers everywhere. I got a comment from a viewer who said he was having issues with his father as related to his struggles to find full-time employment. And as I was listening to that viewer and reading his comment, I really was taken back to my relationship with my late father and many of the discussions we used to have as related to me not being able to find full-time employment. And when it came to my relationship with my father, that was really a serious struggling point that we had as related to things, because he thought that because I had a college degree, it would be easy for me to find full-time employment and be able to go out here and find a job and be working. Unfortunately, what happened with things was there was a major generation gap between my father and myself as related to understanding the differences in the job market, because the job market has completely changed from the days of the silent generation, which my father was a part of, and the baby boomer generation that my brother was a part of, to the times of us Generation Xers, which is the generation I am a part of, and the generations that came after me, like the one my cousin was a part of, who was a millennial, and other generations like Generation Z and Generation Alpha. And the job market has completely changed for the overall Gen Xer, because when we came into the job market, it was a lot more difficult than it was for many of the baby boomers and the silent generation to find a job. Now, when it came to the baby boomer and the silent generation, it was a lot easier to find a job, because all you had to do was go what they call pound the pavement by walking down into a major business area like Midtown Manhattan, and all you had to do was go walking from business to business asking if there was a job available. And with many small businesses, they would let you know if they needed someone almost immediately, and they would let you know that they were looking for people to work for them. And if you didn't even have any skills, a lot of times many employers back then would take a risk on an individual and hire them that same day. And in some cases, they would be getting paid at the end of the week for the job that they had. Now, in that same time, as related to the baby boomers and many of the silent generation, you could also go and apply with the human resources department. And if you got an interview with those people in human resources, they were more open to people, even if they did not have experience, and they would give that person a chance if they were in an unskilled position. And again, that person would be working, and usually by the end of the month, that person would be getting paid and would be on the payroll working regularly at that job. And in that time, also, people could go to temp agencies, and even if they didn't have much experience, they would be open to hiring an individual to do temp work. And even if they did these assignments, they would again still be getting paid at the end of the week. However, something seemed to change as we came out of the time of the silent generation and the baby boomers, and people were not really as receptive to hiring members of Generation X like myself. I mean, when I entered the job market back in 1992, I found it to be an extremely hostile environment, and this was just with a high school diploma. And I was out here applying for many of the retail jobs that my brother was able to get back in the early to mid 80s with just a high school diploma. And instead of people being open to looking to hire me, oftentimes I would get blown off and ignored, whereas my brother could basically get those jobs working stock for minimum wage or a little bit more and be on his way to making money. Moreover, my brother also could go out to temp agencies with just that same high school diploma, and those temp agencies would have been open to giving him a job in one of these mailrooms, in one of these corporate offices. However, when I went to apply for those jobs with just my high school diploma and no experience, many of those same temp agencies didn't want to hire me at all. And I oftentimes got ignored and blown off by these agencies who would sit there and talk about how they wanted all of this experience. And that was what led to me going to college, and I got my college degree. And after I got my college degree, I ran into more of the same resistance from many of these same employers who oftentimes talked about how they wanted all of this experience, but it was impossible to get experience because nobody would give me a first job. And this is the kind of resistance many of us Generation Xers ran into as related to the job market, and this hostile environment has just become progressively worse over the last 30 years. And as it has become progressively worse, many people from Gen X onward run into is a lot of resistance from people who are a part of, some of them from the silent generation, some of them from the baby boomers, and a lot of them from the baby boomers who want to go out here and put a stack of requirements for simple entry-level jobs. Many of these individuals will sit there and say how they want 4-year degrees and multiple years of experience, and some of them want even advanced degrees for jobs that were only paying $20,000 to $25,000 a year. And again, doing this because they said they wanted to weed out individuals and making the job process just that much harder, making it harder because they said they wanted more committed individuals. But the irony was that as they were looking for these so-called more committed individuals with these college degrees, many of those same individuals would be the first ones to quit the job, whereas the guy with the high school diploma who wanted to learn the business and find a way to make a living, they didn't want to hire that individual. No, they wanted to go out here and get some guy with a bunch of prestige by their name, put them in receptionist and entry-level jobs, but these people were not interested in working their way up. But they would sit there and say this is what they wanted for their jobs, and it made it just that more difficult. Now, the difficulty became even worse as we went into the 90s, into the 2000s, because in addition to many employers wanting to say that they wanted college degrees, what they also did to try to weed out individuals was use technology. Now, back in the 90s, they would weed out people by saying they wanted you to fax your resume to them, using the fax machine as a buffer because most people didn't have fax machines. And they used this to avoid actually dealing with people face to face the way they used to deal with them when my brother and my father would pound the pavement and go look for work. Now, back when they were out, you could actually meet and talk to someone face to face. But as time went on in the 90s, they started using the fax machine to avoid people, and they also started to use other processes to start to avoid people. And as time has gone on from the 90s to the 2000s, what has happened is instead of trying to deal with people face to face, what they do is try to use all sorts of technology to avoid people, first starting with the fax machine and then with the online application. And as we've gone into the world of the online application, many people have it just that much harder in being able to find another full-time job. And that's what the kind of resistance I have run into as I have tried to find full-time work. I mean, I find people who really are not interested in looking to find out if I'm a candidate who's qualified or somebody who is a good fit for a job, or even try to even read a resume, because I've been blown off by people who don't even want to read the resume, and others who don't even want to try to interview you. And now these days what they're doing, because many job applications are online, is they're looking to use AI or other sorts of bots to avoid dealing with real people. And that's where I can relate to the viewer who's dealing with issues with his father, who entered a much easier job market than his son is in. His son is dealing with the most hostile job market I have ever seen, because Ever since 2008, when I lost my job at City College, I have put in over 10,000 applications, or even more than that. I have put in thousands of applications, and I have not ever heard back, but maybe a handful of times, and that is with 10,000 applications, a college degree in business, 10 years of experience as an A+ certified IT technician, over 25 years experience as a writer, and a person who's published over 80 books. I have not really heard much back from these employers, and I have been putting in applications for over 16 years. So I understand where this brother is coming from as related to his father, and I understand where he's coming from because I understand all the frustrations he's dealing with, because he said himself he had applied for over 400 jobs, but his father was thinking that he was lazy, when in actuality he's not lazy at all. No, what's happened is the job market has completely changed, and it's changed for the worse, because instead of human resources trying to help people find work, human resources has become disconnected from people, and what they do is look to try to avoid dealing with real people by using technology to be a buffer to filter people. What they do is look to use things to search for buzzwords in applications and resumes. They look to use AI to search for words in applications. They don't really make it where you can get to know people, and that's the most frustrating thing about searching for a job from the late 20th century into the 21st century is it's next to impossible to get in touch with anyone. And oftentimes, if you do, in those rare occasions, do get in touch with anyone, what people do is they become so cold and indifferent to people that they don't really want to give people that chance that many of people like my brother and my father, who were a part of the baby boomer and silent generation, were able to get. Yes, they could go out here and talk their way into a job and possibly get that opportunity. But for many of us Gen Xers onward, what we run into is a very hostile environment, and a hostile environment because many of these employers really don't act like they care about anything at all as related to hiring new people. No, they don't really care to hire new people at all in the very disconnected job interview process, and it makes it an interview process where you just feel like you're dealing with someone who really just has no regard for you at all and doesn't want to see anything that you have to offer. I mean, I'm a guy, again, I have a degree in business. I have a CompTIA A+ certification and can repair both PCs, and I learned how to repair MacBook Pros in my home. And I've also got years of experience as a YouTube content creator, a writer with over 80 books published, and ran my own publishing company, had 2 successful Kickstarters. I mean, a whole lot of experience, but the whole thing is when you go to these employers, they really are really just cold. I mean, just really rude. And many of these people, they just really don't really understand about looking to see if a person is a good fit. So they don't really think about who they're hiring, and it makes it a very frustrating process. So I could relate to that young brother who was talking about his struggles with his father, because you want to go out here and get that job because you want to show your father you can be a man like him. You want to show the world that you can do work just like your father. Unfortunately, the world doesn't want to work with men in today's job market, and that's something that's really, again, was really frustrating for me, because I wanted to go out here and get that job to show my father I could be a man like him and go out here and work like him before he passed away. I wanted him to see me as a competent man who could go out here and work at one of these jobs and be able to get the money to rebuild my life. I wanted to show him that I could take care of myself, but the problem I'm running into, that my viewer was running into, is this hostile environment as related to jobs. And many of these employers, they make it nigh impossible for you to try to get in touch with them. It make it nigh impossible because they hide behind technology, and many people don't understand this who are older, and it can cause a lot of stress on younger people because a lot of people don't understand what many of us Gen Xers onward deal with as related to the job market. We deal with a completely different job market than the one our fathers and grandfathers dealt with. That job market that our fathers and grandfathers dealt with was way more friendly to people because people had to actually talk to people. People had to treat people right. People had to show people respect. But this job market doesn't really show anybody the respect that I do here at SJS Direct. I mean, here at SJS Direct, I try to do unto others as I want done unto me. And that's why I try to be as professional as possible to many of the comic artists I have worked with, many of the folks that I deal with as related to trying to sell books on the SJS Direct imprint. I try to go out here and try to treat people the way I want to be treated because I think about the cruel way I have been treated, and I don't want to give that back to people as related to their issues in the job market. I don't want to give that back because to me, the best way to do things is to be honest with people and be straightforward and have a connection with people. And that's one of the things that makes this job market very frustrating for a lot of younger folks out there. And this situation gets exacerbated because your family wants to see you do well, because my father wanted to see me do well. He wanted to see me succeed. Unfortunately, I ran into things like this feminist created HR brick wall where these women are completely indifferent to a man because some of them have been hurt by bad boyfriends. Some of them have been divorced by husbands. They project that man onto you in an interview, and others just basically, they have no regard for any man because they feel that, oh, if you hire men, they're going to go out here and take over, not understanding you don't own anything in this company. But this is the type of stuff that we as men have to deal with, and we try to show that our fathers, yes, we want to work. No, nobody's lazy. I wasn't lazy since 1994. I have not been lazy. No, the whole thing is you run into this whole different job market than the one that came before it over 50 or 60 years ago, where people were open and receptive to giving people chances. But these days, we have people who are talking about they want multiple college degrees, they want letters of recommendation, they want guarantees as related to work ethic, when in actuality, all work is risk. And the whole thing is you're going to have to take a risk in order to get results. That's what many employers just don't understand about the whole job process. I mean, when I go out here and I hire a comic artist to do a cover like those I do for the Isis, Esteem, and John Haynes series books, or my Spinsterella books, I'm taking a risk. And I'm taking a risk because I want to give somebody a chance, but many employers don't see it the way I do, that in order to get rewards, you've got to take risks. And that's what makes it hard for people to find work these days, because many employers are insecure. They're afraid of having a failure, not understanding that when it comes to business, risk is about, the only way to get reward is with risk. And the whole thing is you're taking a risk every day when you go out here and hire someone, because sometimes it may work, sometimes it may not work, but you got to trust God as related to the risk. And the whole thing is trying to put a whole bunch of stipulations on things isn't going to get you a desired result, or hiring a friend or a family member. That's not going to get you a desired result. No, you've got to go out here and sometimes go out on faith and understand that if it's meant to be, God will make it work out. And that's something people don't understand about this whole situation as related to jobs. And the job market itself has become a nightmare because people want to work. I mean, a lot of men out here, we want to work. We want to go out here and bring our best work to the table, but you can't bring something to the table for someone who doesn't want to see it. And that's the frustrating thing, because people like myself, we want to make a living, we need to make a living, but the whole thing is many people are so caught up in their ivory towers, like many of the baby boomers and many of these other folks of the silent generation who have basically retired out. They've got theirs, but they don't think about the next, man. And that's what makes it so hard for people out here to get work. Many of these people, they get played, or they get burnt, or when something happens to them, or some of them just are so cold because they can't see other people. And that's what makes it really hard. But you can't explain this to a lot of older people who've had opportunities and don't appreciate the opportunities that were given to them, and don't want to give those opportunities to the next generation. And that's what's causing this huge generation gap between fathers and sons as related to the job market. Now, if you want to learn how to avoid workplace predators on the job, you can pick up my book, Stop Simping in the Workplace, on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find Stop Simping in the Workplace at other online booksellers like Draft to Digital, Google Play, and Barnes & Noble. And if you'd like to see me make more videos like this, you can send a donation to the Patreon, the PayPal, or the Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Coming to paperback and e-readers, John Haynes, Illuminati. The man who rules the world takes on the head of the global elite in this action-packed, all-new John Haynes series adventure. Pre-order your copy of John Haynes, Illuminati on Amazon.com and online booksellers everywhere. Coming to paperback and e-readers, John Haynes, Illuminati. The man who rules the world takes on the head of the global elite in this action-packed, all-new John Haynes series adventure. Pre-order your copy of John Haynes, Illuminati on Amazon.com and online booksellers everywhere. Support Black-owned and Black-operated digital broadcast media. www.niceradionetwork.com. Nice Radio Network, broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.